Jessica Le Mazurier in the newsroom. The last time a U.S. ambassador was killed, it was 1979, Afghanistan, ahead of the Soviet invasion. Today, it's after the Arab Spring. Christopher Stevens, the U.S. ambassador to Libya, one of 4 embassy staff killed trying to evacuate the consulate in Benghazi under siege from an angry mob protesting a hitherto unknown low-budget satire movie out of California that pokes fun at Islam.
Make no mistake, justice will be done.
The U.S. President Barack Obama speaking a short while ago. What should be done at this point? Who done it? We're going to hear more reactions over the next hour, not only from the U.S., where there's a presidential election campaign on, but from Libya, of course, and Cairo, where Salafists have once again gathered this Wednesday outside the U.S. Embassy. On the one hand, the government in Egypt arresting 4 for trespassing and calling for restraint after an attack on the U.S. Embassy in Cairo on Tuesday. On the other hand, the Muslim Brotherhood there calling for nationwide demonstrations Thursday. And President Morsi has asked the U.S. to prosecute the makers of that movie. Police have also, by the way, broken up protests outside the U.S. Embassy in Tunis. Welcome, everyone, to this special edition of the France 24 debate. With us from Tripoli, France 24's Catherine Norris-Trent, joining us here in the studio, former State Department official Laurie Dundon, fellow at the Truman National Security, I got this right. Truman National Security Project. I got to the end of it. How are you, Laurie? Also with us, Paul Valley, political scientist, and with us as well, France 24's Mathieu Mabin, who covered the fall of Muammar Gaddafi in Tripoli. The France 24 debate, where a lot of you have been weighing in on this one on our Facebook page and also on Twitter, where you can find us at François F24. Laurie Dundon, again, we said at the outset, a U.S. ambassador killed. It's highly unusual. What's going on right now inside the State Department?
Well, inside the State Department and inside the White House, there is not only serious concern for what has happened in maintaining stability in Libya, but also to ensure, as the President said in his first remarks, and the Secretary of State said, that this is not an act by the state of Libya against the United States. The ambassador is the representative of the President of the United States abroad. And so this is an attack on our representation of the President. But they made sure to delineate that it was an attack by a small group, not by the government of Libya, and that the cooperation between the U.S. and Libya will go forward. That was the first step that had to be done today. The second step will now be looking at how they're going to increase their security measures, how they keep this from spiraling out of control within the country, within the region, and yet maintain their responsibility for the security of their own personnel.
Catherine Norris-Trent, first of all, let me ask you, Christopher Stevens, what kind of a role had he played in Libya?
I couldn't actually quite hear your question, Francois, but the reaction from government officials here in Tripoli was initially one of shock. The information trickled out slowly before they started confirming it, and all day they've been holding crisis talks here in Tripoli. This was supposed to be a triumphant day for the Libyan politicians. They were supposed to be naming their new prime minister, who form a new government to lead them in peacetime, handing on from the NTC, the Transition Council. Instead, they've been in crisis talks, and it really has continued throughout the day. The officials we've spoken to have been very shaken up. There's even talks that they're going to completely rejig the head of the Interior Ministry and the Defence Ministry. They're coming under a great deal of pressure, understandably, to catch the people involved in this and to really crack down on security, which is one of their major challenges going forward.
All right, and we seem to be having a little bit of technical problems. Apologies for the audio difficulties there, Catherine. Hopefully we can sort it out. We can also go to Cairo, where we're joined for our conversation by Hugh Miles, the author of Playing Cards in Cairo, journalist who knows Libya very well. Hugh, thanks for being with us. In Cairo, as we were saying in our introduction, it's two sorts of reactions. On the one hand, the government urging restraint. On the other, the Muslim Brotherhood calling for more demonstrations on Thursday.
Well, I mean, the Muslim Brotherhood is in a precarious position at the moment because it has to curry favor, it has to be popular. Egypt, like Libya, is going through a transition at the moment. And so these governments need to carry people along with them. They need to play to the crowd. And unfortunately, in both these countries, there is a proportion, probably a small minority, of people who are ready to fight America or feel very violently anti-American, and this is a long-standing problem.
All right, how small is, of course, an important question and one that we'll get back to in a moment. We also want to welcome to our conversation, he's been a guest with us before when he was a member of the National Transitional Council. Wahid Bourshan joins us from Tripoli. Thank you for being with us. I know this is painful for you because, well, you knew Christopher Stevens personally. Tell us a little bit about him.
I sure do. Chris has been a fantastic friend for Libya and Libyans. He's been, as a matter of fact, he's been in Benghazi most of the uprising time early on, and he was a huge supporter of the development of the new Libya. A week ago or a week and a half ago, we were in the mountains in Garian. As you know, I'm from there, and we were sitting in a Libyan meal, very traditional meal called bazin, which is very tough to eat. And we asked him, I said, do you want to eat this? This is really tough. It's not easy, even for Libyans. He insisted that he does because he wants to really to touch and to feel the Libyan traditions and experience it. And he's been a fantastic advocate for Libya. We're going to miss him. I hope that we follow up in his legacy in terms of developing Libya and show it as an example of a democratic Libya, new Libya, not what those people wanted to do is take it back to Stone Age.
And the U.S. Secretary of State has also been paying tribute to Christopher Stevens, Hillary Clinton, who spoke from the State Department earlier.
In the early days of the Libyan revolution, I asked Chris to be our envoy to the rebel opposition. He arrived on a cargo ship in the port of Benghazi and began building our relationships with Libya's revolutionaries. He risked his life to stop a tyrant, then gave his life trying to help build a better Libya.
Mathieu Mabin, are we starting to piece together a little bit what exactly happened Tuesday evening?
It is still very difficult to know what happened really. What we know is that a crowd moved on the way to the embassy or to this American territory in Benghazi. And when they reached the place, they faced the security forces. First of all, the Libyan security forces, security agents, private agents.
And the ambassador to the UN, by the way, says that there are casualties among the Libyans.
Yes.
We don't have confirmation of that yet.
And we don't know a lot about it. Yeah, and in the second line was made of U.S. Marines who are always around ambassadors all over the world. There were probably not less than 30 men. Usually it's a platoon around 30 men. But of course those men, when they saw the crowd moving to the embassy with weapons in the hand and rocket launcher, we said rocket launcher in a demonstration, it was a kind of aggression, definitely. So they had to react. But we will know more and more in the next few days. It is still very difficult to know what happened really and how the ambassador finally died in the crowd as it is supposed to have happened.
Wahid Bourshan, what are the dynamics of the situation in Benghazi right now, and why were there rocket-propelled grenades outside the consulate?
Well, this is very difficult to explain, and it is definitely under investigation. I think there were some people maybe were opportunists and taking advantage of the crowd and the situation of this movie or the film that has been developed against the Prophet. And I think maybe some people were just trying to look for an opportunity. But clearly demonstrating with the rocket-propelled grenade is not a way to demonstrate in a political, in a democratic state. Nonetheless, I think just to follow up in some of the events, what I know myself, is that this particular brigade, they moved the ambassador or they moved some of the employees to a safe house, and then they returned in 2 hours. It seemed like they were followed or something of the sort, and then there were some skirmishes, and then there were a full-scale attack. We don't know exactly the details, but I understand also that the ambassador passed away through suffocation in a basement where he was hidden. So again, let me caution, we don't know the details, but some of the information, the bits and pieces that came out. The environment right now, the Libyan people in Benghazi especially, they're extremely upset. They're extremely upset. They know Ambassador Stevens. He was with them, as you can see from the tape, throughout the toughest time. He was a very good friend. As a matter of fact, he was there to open the consulate and the cultural office. He was there to make things easier for the people in Benghazi, the Libyans, our people in Benghazi, to get visa, out of the consulate. So he was really an advocate for, Benghazi, and and he knows them extremely well. So the environment right now is a shock. I understand there's demonstrations going on now. I know most of the people in Benghazi, they're looking to prove to the rest of the world that this is not the sort of things that Libyan people should stand for, and clearly that's the situation we are in.
Paul Valley, your thoughts on the timing of all of this?
Obviously, the timing is quite delicate. In terms, obviously, of domestic politics, with the election campaign in the U.S. coming into full swing.
U.S. Domestic
and the U.S. presidential election. But of course, it also comes at a rather tense juncture internationally speaking as well. And given the fact that of course, this is the time for taking stock of what has been the administration's successes or failures or halfway achievements over the last 4 years are being weighed over, and especially, of course, in terms of U.S. policy towards this area of the world. Certainly, this is an incident that comes with the potential of actually snowballing into some kind of polemic, especially when we saw, of course, from what are different reports we've heard just now, that the timing and the sequencing of the events from last night came in very complex and different stages as well. So at first there was, of course, reports of demonstrations both in Cairo and in Benghazi. Then I think there was an original report about one U.S. consular official killed, and it was only this morning that there was a confirmation of the death of Ambassador Stevens. And as a result, of course, the official reaction from Washington was at first to try to address also the problems of the demonstrations caused by the internet showing of this particular film. And of course, as soon as the story developed, it assumed that the first reaction from the U.S. government appeared to be out of touch with the seriousness of the incident. And that's something which, of course, Mitt Romney and the Republican Party immediately released a statement about that.
We'll touch on that point in the second half of our discussion. In Tripoli, there's been apologies, condolences at the highest levels, although some in the government second-guessing the Americans' handling of those September 11th demonstrations.
The American consulate did not take the necessary security measures, even when they knew that there was a protest. It was the consulate's mistake. We do not know why. Maybe they had their own plans.
Laurie Dunton, your reaction to that statement, could they have seen it coming?
Well, I think our security officials at a consulate or an embassy in a very risky environment is always watching for what's coming, but they also are also always walking a tightrope between how do you keep your personnel safe and take as maximum security procedures as possible without locking everybody up behind walls where they can't get out and engage with the population and engage in the work they need to do. So there are constantly threat assessments coming in. I'm sure they are constantly hearing reports about possible attacks, possible protests, possible things going on, and they have to walk that fine line. One of the very admirable things about Ambassador Stevens, and I regret I did not know him personally, but it sounds that he was very much focused on getting out there and working with Libyans to do what needs to be done to move Libya forward, and that he took the risk personally as far as he could go to try and be helpful. Unfortunately, it just resulted in the incident spinning out of control this time.
Certainly the way Wade Bouchan's been describing it for us. Hugh Miles, you know Libya very well. What's your feeling? Obviously, we've just been discussing about how little we know on what happened. Who is responsible for this?
Well, I mean, I think you have to begin by looking at the peculiar situation that Libya is in. I mean, earlier you were speaking with your guests about why there were RPGs at a demonstration outside the embassy. Well, I mean, the answer is because Libya has just emerged from a war, and the security situation there is very wobbly. There's still many militias who remain armed. These are revolutionaries who took up arms against Gaddafi, but they remain outside central government control. And obviously this is not sustainable, but it's very hard for the government to do anything about it. And this is going to be the big test for the Libyan government. They might step up and deal with this problem, or they might not, and that remains to be seen. But I think that there is clearly security problems in Libya, and this might be related as well to the fact that the US has not been allowed to bring in Blackwater and mercenaries and other armed Americans in the same kind of numbers as they could in Iraq, for example.
But would they have wanted to in any case, Wahid Bouchan?
No, I would not definitely recommend that. Blackwater situation in Libya would exaggerate the situation, and as a matter of fact, I would suggest maybe a certain element of that, having foreign forces in an area, a tribal area, may cause more problematic. But let me go back to the point of the security. Who needs to be blamed? I think clearly, as a Libyan, we're hosting these embassies and these consulates, and it's our responsibility to protect them. And I'm dismayed at the message of the deputy minister who says, you know, it's responsibility of the security of the embassies. That's nonsense. In my view, they're the ones who are aware of the environment. They're should be more aware of it than the security consulate. And they should, this whole I know the place for myself, and I know it is an outskirt of Benghazi. They should have realized, you know, the potential that's growing. They should have had their security people in there. They had ample time to react to it. There was the first phase and the second phase. I think there was clearly lack of response. I think I may even
lack of response on the part of the local authorities.
Of the Libyan.
I'm going to interrupt you, Wahid, because we have to take a quick break. We'll be back. This is a special edition of the France 24 debate.